Great morning, everybody. Great morning, great morning, great morning. We're getting ready to go live here on Instagram in just a minute. If you're just jumping on, this is your first time with us. Welcome to Breakfast with the Brookses. We are going to go live and here, in just one moment. If you are on Instagram, want to ask you to do us a favor.
Would you like me to do it?
And no, I'm good. And I'd like you to go over and follow us on IG. If you're on IG, follow us at Breakfast with the Brookses on Instagram. And if you could kind of get into that Instagram shot, baby, that would be great. So listen, guys, really quickly, Cherie and I are here. It's good to see everybody. Do me a favor, drop your name in the chat as you come into the room. That's not on, so don't even sweat it. Just move it out your way if that's what you're asking. And then we want everybody to let us know who you are and where you're chiming in from. Who you are and where you are chiming in from. Cherie's trying to get her lips on, trying to get everything squared away. So do us a favor really quickly. Let us know who you are and where are you chiming in from. We're super excited to be able to have you. I can't see the comments as of right now. We're going to pull that part up. So just do me a favor and let us know. Cherie, we're going to talk about the energizing cycle, and we're going to kind of pick back up where we left off last week, but we're going to also frame everything up based upon, I got you, baby, based upon what we talked about or found out about in the photograph. So we're going to go live on Instagram here in just one second. We're on YouTube. Yeah.
Oh, you confused me. I'm confused this morning.
Yeah, Cherie is trying to figure it out. Great morning, Instagram. What's happening?
Good morning.
What's happening? We are live here on Instagram and we're live on YouTube. What's happening, everybody?
Good morning, Michelle. Good morning, Karen. Good morning, Shanae from Maryland.
What's happening?
Good morning, Teresa. Good morning, Deirdre. Good morning, Tiffany.
Good morning, everybody. Listen,
Hey, Rhonda.
I'm excited. Is Rhonda on? That ain't Rhonda Waller. Not this early.
Yes, it is.
No, she's not.
Yes, it is.
That is not happening.
Hey, guys.
That's what's really going on. So listen, real quick. If you are a part of the MAPS Relationship Academy, I want you to put hashtag MAPS Rocks in the chat. Hashtag MAPS Rocks in the chat. And we're going to go from there. For you guys on Instagram, do me a favor. If you don't know about the MAPS Relationship Academy, we certainly want to inform you that Cherie and I created what we call the MAPS Relationship Academy 3 years ago now.
Yes.
And it is a relationship academy designed to help people who are in relationships grow them healthy. And I think that unfortunately most of us do not get an opportunity to do that on the front end. And so we find ourselves in counseling a lot. We find ourselves coaching in a coach's office trying to fix something that was broken as opposed to trying to fix it on the front end. So the MAPS Relationship Academy really helps people to be able to do that. And we're excited. So if you want to know more about that, just go to www.thecrcoach.com and you can find out more information about the MAPS Relationship Academy. We'd love to have you there.
All right. Good morning, Dana. Teresa said it's 28 degrees in Percyville.
What is the temperature in your city, guys? What's the temperature in your city? Dre is from Upper Marlboro. What is the temperature in Upper Marlboro, Andre? What's the temperature in Upper Marlboro? I want to find out if you are in the MAPS Relationship Academy. I see a whole bunch of MAPS Rocks. Dane, it's good to see you. Let me tell you why this is important. I think that particularly after last night, one of the things that I saw in this movie, The Photograph, was the idea of how we as a people and as a culture, we tend to, and I'm just not even dealing with our culture, I'm just talking about the human culture, really. We got a tendency to ask people their opinion on things that they've never done because of our association with the person.
Right.
Because I like you, because I know you care about my well-being, I am going to feel safe to ask you a question or what you think about something and never give regard to the fact that you may not have a healthy answer because you've not experienced it and you've not gone through it and you're not winning at it.
Right, or you've never even been exposed to it yourself. And just to preface this before we get into this today, we are not giving, there's no spoilers about the movie. We're not going into details about the actual movie. It's some principles that we walked away with that we're going to share about that just kind of hit home for us as we've been on this topic dealing with love and respect.
Yep.
And the energizing cycle. And so once again, I want to welcome everybody to YouTube and also to Instagram this morning. If you are not already subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe.
Yes.
And ring the bell. And also for those of you on Instagram, you can go to the description and the link is there to join the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you guys join our channel. We're still trying to reach our number.
Yep. 500. We're still 500. a couple of subscriptions away.
So please share this out to your friends and family. And we will be offering a special gift to the 500th subscriber. So please be sure to share this out. Share it to your friends, your families, your coworkers, anybody that you know that's in a relationship that you think could benefit from the content that we share here on our channel.
Yep.
And want to welcome you guys this morning. I know a bunch of you guys saw my lovely video the other day. Talking about the blizzard of Hampton Roads.
Right.
Just was being silly, being from the DMV, know what real snow is like.
Yeah.
And it's always amazed me, us being here and also being in Atlanta for years, how they would just freak out at the whiff of snow.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so everything shuts down. So just was being funny.
So guys, real quick, if you have been joining us for the last few weeks, do me a favor, raise your hand. If you're not, if this is your first time, put first time in the chat. Hey, Christy, good to see you. I want to talk today, babe, and pick up a little bit about where we left off dealing with the crazy cycle. And for those of people who are just joining us, I'm going to recap just a little bit so that we can hurry up and get into this content that we're going to talk about today. But the crazy cycle is that cycle where y'all can't see eye to eye. The crazy cycle is when you say one thing, she says the other, and it just is this vicious cycle of you not really being able to come to terms on pretty much anything of value, anything of significance. And as a result of that, what happens is that you guys begin to, and I'm just trying to fix this a little bit, you guys begin to find yourself picking at stuff that don't matter. Mm-hmm. You find yourself arguing about things that just don't ever get resolved. And before you know it, if you're not careful, it will cost you your relationship.
Right.
And so a lot of times what I want everybody to understand is that that crazy cycle is really because you do not know how to effectively communicate. Mm-hmm. And I think that unfortunately most of us, we've never grown up and we've never developed the skill of communicating. I know as a coach, we see it all the time where we're in a room with people and they think they're saying one thing, but the spouse or the significant other is hearing something completely different.
Right. And I think that, and this is one thing that we talk about and we delve into in detail in the Master Relationship Academy routinely, is communication. In order to have an effective relationship, to have a successful relationship, you have to level up your communication skills. And it's layered.
Yeah.
It's not just my being able to talk. Mm-hmm. It's not just my being able, people will go through a public speaking course because they want to learn how to better communicate. That's one layer of communicating.
Right.
That's one level of communication. But being able to communicate so that the person actually understands and hears what it is that you're saying, that they comprehend it, that they take it in.
Right.
That they're able to hear your heart in what you're saying, being able to, because sometimes we don't have the words to say exactly what we're trying to say.
Right.
But being able to, number one, be in a space where you feel free enough and comfortable enough to, and are given the space to be able to share how you feel is essential. And in relationships is key that you have to learn the skill of communication because it has such a major effect. If I can, one thing from the movie last night, and like I said, we're not going to go into details about the movie, but a thing that hit home for me personally, for those of you that do know me, that know my history, that have heard, I've been married twice before. This is my third marriage. In my first two marriages, I realized that there were conversations that I should have had that I never had. Mm-hmm. And those ultimately led to the demise of my relationship because I did not know how to communicate how I was really feeling. Mm-hmm. I had certain fears. I had certain just apprehension about certain things. And rather than sharing my real thoughts or my real feelings about the situation, for me, what I did is I ran.
Yep.
Rather than face the consequences of what what potential consequences of the conversation could have been, and it could have been it could have turned out positive. It may not have been a negative thing, but I didn't even allow room for that to happen because I never had the conversation.
One thing I want y'all to put in the chat real quick is that when you have the conversation, you win. When you don't have the conversation, you will lose.
Right.
It's really that black and white. Listen to me very carefully, guys. When you have the conversation, what's up, Chris? Good to see you. Michonne, good to see you. Dana, good to see you. Karen, good to see you. Alicia. When you have the conversation, you will always win. When you do not have the conversation, you more than likely will always lose, at least on some level.
Right.
And what I'm talking about when I'm referring to the conversation, it's how you're feeling about what it is that you are thinking. And when you do not allow people to, in your head, even when you don't understand what that is, what happens is that you routinely will lose, because now you're asking somebody to make decisions based upon something that they have no idea.
Right.
They have no idea how you're thinking regarding that, because it stays in your head. And I think that there's a ton of reasons why we do that. But I just want y'all to put that in the chat before Cherie finishes this point. And that is, if you don't have the conversation, you will lose.
Right.
But if you do have the conversation, even when it doesn't go the way you had planned,
You still win.
you still win.
Right, because you were able to share how you felt. I know in my particular situation, I did not allow my spouses to, I didn't give them the opportunity to make a choice. I made the choice solely based on my own fears. Because I didn't have a conversation, I had a conversation with myself on what I wanted or how I felt. And I acted on that without having a conversation. And I'm going to be extremely transparent this morning, and this is difficult for me. But in my first marriage, I was very young, was in the military, was 19 at the time. We got married, and not too long after getting married, I found out I was pregnant. Scared the crap out of me, to be honest. I was scared. I was terrified. I was cool with okay, we married, this is cool, because we were, number one, we were stationed at two different bases. I mean, we were close enough that we could see each other like every other weekend, but we weren't really married, because we weren't living together.
Well, you were married on paper, and you
right.
went
We
to
were
the altar.
we were
legally married, but
we
you
went
didn't
to
live together. You
right,
didn't have a
right. We didn't have a real marriage
Right.
because we weren't really living together. So the effects of a marriage hadn't hit me, and so when I found out I was pregnant, I was terrified. And, I had a very rough pregnancy in the beginning, had morning sickness, which didn't help. And out of my fear, I made a decision, without having a conversation with him, that, and this was an internal decision I made that I later acted on, but I had made a decision that I can't do this. I can't be married and be a mother. I'm not prepared for this.
So when you say you made the decision, if I'm hearing you correctly, babe, in your mind, you had an entire conversation.
Yes.
With yourself. That conversation lived in your head, and your first husband had no idea that this conversation was taking place in your head about him and y'all's situation. And then you did one better. You ramped up and you made a decision based upon what you were talking to yourself about.
Right.
Acted on that decision, and again, this is all completely unbeknownst to him.
Right. And the funny thing, I remember when I told him I was pregnant, in my mind, I'm expecting him to be upset. I wanted him to be upset that I was pregnant. I wanted a way out. He didn't respond that way. He was extremely excited. We're pregnant. We're gonna have a baby, and I have no regrets about having my daughter at all. Please do not hear that. She's the best thing in the world that ever happened to me. I'm grateful for my daughter. It was actually, her coming into my life that changed me over time, that helped me to grow up and helped me to become the person that I am today. So I have no regrets on having my daughter. I want to preface that. But I think at that point in time in my life, I had made a subconscious decision. I'm not ready for this. I can't do both. I can't be a wife and I can't be a mother. And so I mulled over these thoughts in my head. I never had a conversation with him. Hey, I'm scared. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know how yeah, I'm grown. I got my own income. I'm in the military. You know, that part, I wasn't scared of that part about not being able to provide or anything like that. It was just the reality of everything. At that point, like I said, I was 19. I was 20 when I had her. And so I was I was in California. I was on the other side of the country, away from my family. Even though, you know, my family relationship was dysfunctional as it was. You know, ladies, you understand when you're pregnant, you want your mommy. And so these thoughts that I mulled over in my mind led me to leave without telling him I was leaving or why I was leaving.
So, guys, what I want y'all to hear, and for those of y'all who are just jumping in, yeah, it is deep, Karen. When we saw the movie The Photograph last night, it brought all these thoughts up in Cherie's mind. And I know for me, what it did is that it showed me the value of having the conversation in my head. When we get in a relationship with people, we say by getting in the relationship that we value you. I can't tell you how many people I coach that don't get that. When I value something, it looks like something. You treat it as if it's worth something significant. But here's the problem. Even in you treating it like it's worth something that's significant, if you don't understand the true value of it, you can still mistreat it.
Right.
If you take a diamond ring and you give it to a child, they're not going to treat that like it's expensive or like it's rare or like it's of great value because they have no clue how to connect those dots. And a lot of times in a relationship, I'll get in a relationship with a person and not understand the fragility, the history, the thought process, the fears, the concerns. I'll not understand your environment, how it shaped you.
Right.
I don't know any of those things. And so I can love you, but also mistreat you.
Right.
Does that make sense? One of the things that Cherie has to continually remind me of is things, and that is, babe, sometimes she'll say to me, I need you to be patient with me today. I don't know why I'm feeling anxious about this, about that. Maybe it's a decision that she's having to make or whatever the case may be. But she can communicate today, I need you to be patient with me. Those are the kinds of conversations that should always be had in the confines of a relationship. Now, here's the challenge. Most of us don't know how. Well, what do you do when you don't know how to do something? Put that in the chat. When you don't know how to do something, what do you do? Across the board, I don't care what it is. If you want to know how to do something and you don't know how to do it, what do you do? That's a question. Instagram, I need y'all to answer that question. YouTube, I need y'all to answer that question. When there is something in your space that you want to know how to do and you realize that you do not know how to do it, what do you then do?
Right. And I think that we lean on ourselves, and, you know, for my super spiritual people, you know, we can say all the proper, give all the proper answers, but in reality, when you're in a situation that you're uncomfortable, that you're scared, that's unfamiliar, and you don't know what to do, what you typically do is you respond or you react. You don't respond. You react. It's an emotional response. It's what seems to come naturally. But in reality, it's an emotional response, and it's based out of fear in most cases. It's based out of our insecurities, and we will respond or react out of that versus responding. When you respond, that means you're giving this thing some real thought. That means you're seeking counsel. You're gathering information and then making a response, a logical response to whatever the situation is. But what we typically do is we react. And for me, in that situation, I reacted. I didn't talk to anybody. I had these conversations solely in my little 20-year-old head. And made some decisions that, you know, like I said, it eventually led to the demise of that marriage because, you know, I left. We wound up getting back together. I came back. But because this seed had been planted in my mind, there was always this part of me that was like, kept telling me I can't do this.
You know what? I want you to hold that point because something that Dre said on Instagram. He said, when I know that I need to know something and I know that I don't know it, one of the things that I do is I seek advice through information or advisors.
Right.
Christy says, I research and pray, look for resources around me.
Right.
Ask a question is what Janelle said. Rhonda says, find someone who knows.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Find someone who knows,
right.
and then ask. Here's what I want to submit. Again, we saw this movie, The Photograph. If you haven't seen it, you should go see it. Every relationship on the planet should see it. Couples, every single person on the planet should see it because it brings up so many dynamics that are
right.
not happening that need to.
Right.
And one of the things that I keep saying, I woke up this morning saying, if I don't have the conversation, I will lose.
Right.
And I want you to think about it like this. If you don't take the shot, how will you sink it?
Right. Right.
If I don't take the shot, how will I score? Mm-hmm. And so the reason why most people lose in relationships is because they don't take their shot.
Right, right. And I think that, I'm talking about the 20-year-old me.
Yep.
So let's fast forward this to the more mature, the more adult version. I think there are conversations that even as older, like I can make a whole lot of excuses for why I did what I did when I was 19 and 20. I was immature. I can excuse that away in a lot of ways. You know what I mean? If I wanted to, but I take full responsibility. I shouldn't have done what I did. I was wrong, and I've apologized to my ex, and we've had some conversations. But I think that oftentimes there are conversations. It may not even be that deep, but there are conversations that are not had because, in honesty, we don't want to know the answer or we don't want to know the response.
Right.
And so I'm not going to tell you a certain thing about me or ask a certain question because I really don't want to know the answer. Mm-hmm. I'd rather just,
Yep.
I may see something and be like,
yep.
I should ask.
Yep.
Then I'm like, no, because I inside I'm like, you don't really want to know that.
Yep.
So just, everything's cool. So just keep going along and don't, and then what happens is because you don't have that conversation, a month later, 3 months later, this thing comes back up, and now it is what you thought it may have been,
and more sometimes.
And now you're hurt, and now you want to blame them.
Yep.
Well, why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ask?
Right. Ooh, babe. When I want to switch gears real second, fast forward to our relationship. When we first got married, I could not talk to you about anything financial. Mm-hmm. I couldn't have that conversation. I was a horrible manager of money. I had no problem making it. I had no problem going out and generating it. I didn't know what to do with it once I got it. And so you were always incredibly great at managing it. But I can now say that the fear that I had was that I was inadequate. Mm-hmm. And to have a conversation with you about my inability to manage funds and to hear you correct me or to hear you give me wisdom or to hear you give me instruction reminded me of how inadequate I was.
Right.
And what I didn't know then, that was 20 years ago, is that if I sat in that inadequacy and I embraced that inadequacy, I could be educated.
Right. Right.
And I think that unfortunately I would lose routinely, y'all, because this woman was a brilliant manager of resources. Let me tell y'all what I know about single mothers. It's something that God gives you. Most single mothers are winning on another level when it comes to managing resources, whether that's your time, your money, you name it.
And I get butter out the duck.
You know what I'm saying? I could not bring myself to say, I don't know.
Right.
And so what I did is I practiced for years not asking.
Right.
Even to this day, I have to make myself check in with you and say, hey, where are we with this?
Right, right.
We had to, at one point, we built meetings where we would sit down because I wasn't going to be a victim to being miseducated.
Right, right, right. And I think that, those, like I said, those fears, that your own insecurities will cause you not to ask those questions. And it hinders you because, it's something that could benefit you. And I think because we tend to, when we see something that, a red flag or a yellow flag, it ain't even got to be a red flag, and we think that it may go left, we're so fearful of something going left that we don't, number one, we don't see that, okay, if I find out that this person is crazy now,
right.
I could save myself heartache down the road.
Yep.
But what we think is that I'm in this relationship, I like this person, I want to stay with them, I can see us being together, I just don't want to go through the heartache of breaking up. But wouldn't you rather end it, if they're crazy, wouldn't you rather end it now?
Right.
Than the relationship progress, you're married now, you got kids now, then all this stuff comes out, and now you got a whole divorce, you got kids to consider, or even you're bringing something to their attention, and maybe they didn't realize that this was really an issue, and was like, oh, yeah, that happened, but I'm working on this, or I'm doing this, or I'm in counseling for this. But you don't even get to find that out, or they say, hey, yeah, I realize this is an area that I struggle in, and I realize you're really good in it.
Right.
Maybe you can help me.
Right.
Or whatever. But because of our insecurities, because of our fears, we won't confront the issues, and so we don't have the conversations.
So listen, guys, what I want y'all to do, and I want to move quickly through some information. I just want to kind of help you to wrap your mind around this, and that is, when you have the conversation, you will always win. And when you don't have the conversation, you will always lose. We're talking about the energizing cycle, and what does it look like to bring energy to the relationship and get off the crazy cycle. Cherie, one of the things that I want to make sure that we get a chance to touch upon, and I got you, and that is this: it is well within your control. Mm-hmm. Stop throwing caution to the wind, thinking that you don't get to control anything by not talking about it. It somehow will just get better. It won't.
Right.
So one of the things that I want to do, and the reason why I asked this question, what do you do when you don't know? You ask. Mm-hmm. And what I want to help you identify is, why don't you ask?
Right.
Right? And so we'll go into that a little bit. Before we do, you got something you want to share?
Yeah, I wanted to add one last piece. And first, I want to, Dana's comment is definitely a point. Count the cost before, or it will cost later. But the thing that I want to say is that, for those of you that, like I said, that follow us or know, and we've talked about values, and my number one value is integrity. My value of integrity and truthfulness and justice grew out of my being the way I was when I was 19 and 20. I learned over the years the importance of that, the importance of being forthright, the importance of asking the question. We went through a situation when we were dating. There was a situation going on with Glenn, and I asked him point blank, I just need to know the truth. Mm-hmm. And this is something I've always taught my kids. It's like, do not lie to me. Do not lie. It's better to tell the truth. And I practice, if you tell the truth, the consequences are going to always be less than if you lie.
What's up, Coach Rice?
And I think that for me, this has become such a principle, such a value in my life, that I will ask the question in face of consequences, in face of, I'm going to ask. Yep. I'm going to confront. I'm going to, no matter what the potential, my mind is telling me what the potential consequences are, it's worth it for me to go through that door, because for me, knowing the truth, mm-hmm. or facing that giant is more important than whatever that consequence is, because I know that if I'm walking in truth, then God's going to grace me through whatever comes behind that, because I know the truth now. I know what the real deal is. I know I've confronted it. I haven't hid behind it. I'm not, Tiffany, I think I put up that, what do you do when we ask the question, what do you do when you don't know what to do? She said, fake it. I don't fake it anymore. Right. I'm going to confront it. And I understand that. I faked it for years.
Oh, yeah. No judgment.
And that comes out of your insecurities. Absolutely. That comes out of a place of fear. Absolutely. But I've gotten to the point now, I'm going to confront the issue. I'm going to ask the hard question. Yeah. And whatever comes with it, comes with it. But I know that I'm better off. Right. No matter what the end result is, right. Because now I know. I know where you stand.
Exactly. Cherie, one of the things, and I know you're real passionate about this, babe, but I want to get the audience involved. Here's the question I want y'all to answer. Listen to me carefully, guys. Somebody put this in the chat for me. Why don't we have the conversation? Put that in the chat. Why don't we have the conversation?
Right. Why don't we have the conversation?
Why don't we have the conversation? I want you to put that in the chat, and I want you to answer that question. Whatever the conversation. What's up, Mark? It's good to see you, bro. The truth of the matter is that if you do not put a label on it, you will never get to the answer to that.
Right.
In other words, when Cherie asked me what is going, there was a very specific scenario going down right before we got married. She was questioning me on my integrity regarding somebody that I liked, somebody that I had been dating. She wanted to know where was I on that relationship. And y'all, she started firing at me some very detailed and specific questions. And she was putting me in a corner that said, listen, I need you to answer me truthfully. She needed to ask the question, and I'm going to give y'all a secret. I needed the question to be asked. I need y'all to hear this. You have to understand that if Cherie's number one value at that time to this, that I've known her, has been integrity, integrity told her, I got to ask this question. My number one character flaw at that time was that I had very little integrity. And I'm saying very little because I had just come out of having none. So I was in the process of reinventing myself, trying to figure this thing out and become a better person. And Cherie was picking up on, well, before we say I do, because for me, bro, this is the third time I'm not jumping this broom again. I need you to level with me. I need you to be square with me. And for the first time in my entire life, I came clean with a woman. I need y'all to hear this. For the first time, I had been married before. Part of the reason why that marriage had ended in such demise was because of my own insecurities and my own fears, and quite frankly, my own character flaws. It was my fault. 98.9% of that is my fault. And the only reason I leave that little percentage out there because my mama told me a long time ago that where two people are involved, it's never all one person's fault. Somebody somewhere could have said, did something that potentially could have got that thing back on course. And so I'm going to leave that up to the human part, right? But the truth of the matter is, if I could say it was 100% my fault, I would do that. Why am I saying this? Carla, and I appreciate you putting your government name in the chat. Thank you. The truth of the matter is this. I needed you to ask me that question. Because if I was going to grow through my issues of not being integrous, I needed to be around people full of integrity. If she decides to squelch or to quiet that thing in her that's rising up to say, no, ask this question. Because if the guy answers the wrong way, you're going to bounce. But if he answers the right way, you'll consider going this. But here's what I know. If he lies to you, then you're going to bounce 2, 3, 4 more years later because you can't live like that. Why am I saying this, guys? Is that I promise you 100% of the time, if you don't ask, you won't get. If you don't have the conversation, you're going to lose.
And the thing that you have to realize, and I appreciate you guys' comments, I want to get to that in a second, but the thing you have to realize, when you ask a question and the person tells you the truth, you now have control because you get to make a decision.
Oh, that's so good. Please say that again.
You have control now because you get to make an informed decision. You get to make a choice. You get to choose whether you're going to move forward, whether you're going to back up, whether you're going to dissolve it. You get to make that choice. But when you don't know, you're moving forward under false pretense because you don't know. So if you ask the question, and so, full transparency, Glenn had been seeing somebody while we had broken up for a brief moment. He had been dating somebody. We got back together, but they weren't even, I don't even know if they were dating. They were seeing each other, whatever.
They would call that a situationship today.
Yeah, they had a little thing. And so because he still was in an environment where he was still around this person, I asked him, I was like, did you sleep with her?
Point blank.
Did y'all sleep? Did y'all have sex when y'all were doing whatever y'all was doing? And he kept skirting around. And that time I was like, look, I need to know, because you're in an environment where you're still around this person. I need to know, because I need to know where she stands in it, because when you have relations with a woman, that switch goes off. And so I need to know, is she going to be...
You just need to know.
Yeah, I just need to know.
Y'all know.
I needed to know where she was.
And
so, because if I had to, it never got to that, but I just needed to know where she was and where he was. Also, how far this thing went. And so I asked him, at first he skirted around, then I told him point blank, I was like, before I can say yes, I need to know the answer to this. His fear was that in him telling me truthfully, he thought I was going to leave.
Right.
He thought I was going to say, we're done.
Oh, I knew you was going to leave in my mind. That wasn't even a foregone conclusion.
He told me, yes, they had sex. I was like, okay, I just need to know the truth. And he was shocked. He's like,
she didn't pull a gun on me. She didn't pull no knives out.
right.
She just needed to know. And one of the things that I experienced right there, if I could just jump in really quickly, baby, for the first time, I experienced what it looked like to have a very healthy dialogue centered around truth when it came to dealing in relationships, because I was the king of dodging the truth.
Right. And the reality with our situation, Glenn, and he shared his story before, in his previous marriage, he had committed adultery numerous times. And so my thing, I needed to know that he was willing to tell me the truth, that he was not going to hide anything from me. Mm-hmm. Because if he was willing to tell me that now, on the heels of basically knowing that this was do or die, because I knew that he thought that if he told me yes, that I was going to leave.
Y'all have to understand that she had already told me no, she didn't want to marry me twice before this.
Right.
So therefore, this was my third time around the bend saying, will you marry me? And you're saying, before I even get to answering that question, I need to know this.
Right.
And that's one of the reasons why I was like, you know what? I need to put all my cards on this table.
Right.
We're talking about having the conversation. Cherie and I saw the movie, The Photograph, last night. And it brought some things up. And without giving a spoiler alert, first of all, if you've not seen it, definitely go see it. It's an amazing movie.
Great movie.
And we're not going to get into what happened at all, who the characters are.
Nothing, right.
But it will bring up something in your situation that will cause you to think. And here's what I will tell you. It's going to spur you to do something.
Right.
I'm going to encourage you to go with that.
Right, right.
It's going to spur you to do something. I'm going to encourage you to go with that. Can I go to the chat real quick?
Yeah, I wanted to go to some of the people's responses. Some things where people were saying the reason why they don't ask the question is fear, shame, pride, negative self-talk, fear of being held accountable.
Yep.
We had fear of rejection, fear of exposure, afraid of the answer. Trying to keep the peace. This is one I've seen a couple of times. Mm-hmm. And that one particularly stands out to me. I mean, the fears, those all, we all have fears. And so you're all fearful of rejection, where we all experience those feelings. Trying to keep the peace. I want to challenge you guys that's been, something that's prevented you from asking the question or confronting a situation, is look at what type of peace is it that you really want. Do you want a perceived peace?
Ooh, that's good, babe.
Or do you want real peace? And I think that oftentimes we will settle into being comfortable with the status quo because we don't want to rock the boat. That's not true peace. Because in those situations, oftentimes you're walking around on eggshells because I don't want to ask. I don't want to upset them. And so that's not real peace. With real peace, there's freedom. And with that freedom, you should feel free to be able to ask those questions.
Oh, that's good, babe.
And it takes time to get to that place. I was not always here.
Right.
Believe me. I mean, it took me years to get to this place. But I want to challenge those of you that if, part of the reason why you don't ask the questions is because you don't want to rock the boat. You want to keep the peace. Challenge yourself on what type of peace do you really have if you're fearful that you're asking a question is going to mess up the peace in the relationship.
The other thing I want to add to that, guys, is that real peace comes at a cost.
Right.
Always understand, having been in the military, what I know
to
be
peace,
true,
there's conflict.
You're going to always have to endure some sort of conflict to in fact, get to peace. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes that conflict can ramp up into all-out war.
Right,
or what feels to be war to you, right? Mm-hmm. It can definitely, but on the small end, it's definitely going to be something that's going to produce some conflict. Right. But here's the good news: if you pay the price of conflict, if you pay the price of confrontation, on the other side of that is freedom.
Right.
And the reason why is because you are going to be free to be you and to show up as your authentic self no matter what.
Right.
And even if you lose, you win in that situation.
Right.
Because if Cherie lost me because I said I lied to her and she decided she would step and go in another direction, she wins.
Right.
And now here's the crazy thing. I would also win. I would lose her, but I would win because for the first time I got to endure the consequences once again of not telling the truth,
Right.
which should push you into a corner to change. Most people don't change because they've not been put in a corner long enough.
Right.
Let me tell y'all something. Parents, please listen to me. And I know that we're not really on the energizing cycle. This kind of thing has sort of taken over that. But I do think it's the same thing. Freedom energizes a relationship all day long, every day, and twice on Sunday. But the truth is that if you don't know how to walk in your freedom, walk in freedom and walk in truth, what will happen is that you'll be in a relationship where you'll feel yoked up, and before you know it, you're doing things, quite frankly, that you don't want to do. You're saying things, you're putting up with stuff that you really don't want to put up with. We've got people now that we coach both personally and in our group coaching sessions where they are really jammed up because they've never spoke truth, first to themselves and then to the other person.
Right.
So one of the things that I want to encourage you, because we like to leave you with something practical. Shanae, I appreciate y'all comments. I'm not really trying to pay too much attention to the comments right now. We'll go back to that because, Sheree, I want them to understand the how-to. How do we navigate through this? How do we get to the place to where, look at me, baby.
Sorry.
Look at me. Sheree is a turtle, and so she's so caught up on the comments, she's not listening to where we're going, and I need to help her.
I'm sorry.
Listen, I need you guys to understand that if you're going to move from that place, it's important that you play a little game.
Yes.
The little game is something that many of us have heard as kids growing up. And I want to thank Dr. Rhonda Waller for introducing this
To our singles
to our
community.
singles community. And I need to give credit where credit is due.
Yes.
Yes, I said doctor. We have real doctors that are a part of our community because we all need some help. Ain't nobody tripping. But I love it because I'm coaching a room full of people, in many cases, who are smarter than I am. It's just that I have one particular area that we get to help them in that maybe they might be deficient in, but they get to reciprocate that and help us out. And this is the one that I was reminded of, that when we saw this movie last night, it even further made me understand the importance of going back to playing a little game that we all played as kids, and it's called 20 Questions. Y'all remember that game? Penny for your thoughts. Y'all remember that? 20 questions, right? Where you would just ask questions. And one of the things that we're going to do in the month of March is that we're going to take our entire singles community through a values-based training centered around how to ask the right questions.
Yes.
That first starts with you.
Yes.
If you don't ask yourself the right question, you'll never get to the correct answer. Anybody ever sit in a classroom and you feel like you're not getting it, but when you ask the question wasn't the question that got you the answer you wanted? Give me a yes in the chat. In other words, you're asking a question, but they're not quite answering it.
Right.
It's because you're asking the wrong question. I've had the privilege of meeting people who were highly influential. I never will forget one time I was on a plane, I was on a red eye coming back from California. And this was years ago when I was in the radio industry. And I was sitting next to a guy, and he asked me, he said, if I had $1 million to give you for your organization, how would you spend it? And I'm going to tell you something. And then he said, before you answer that question, let me frame it up this way. What is the most important resource in your organization? It was shortly after I left the radio station, as a matter of fact, because I was in ministry at this point. And I was coming back from doing some research and working with some clients on the West Coast. Here it was crazy. He says, what's your number one resource? And if I threw $1 million at it, how would you spend it? At the time, he was asking the right question. And but it begged the right answer. It made me think of something that I had never even considered and said out loud. And I said, you know what? Our number one resource in the company and the corporation that I work in right now are people. It's not money. In other words, you could give me $1 million and we could throw that against a project, but I would take that money and invest it into the right people. Because at this particular point, it's the people resources that we lack to move the ball and do what really needs to be done, not the product. Why am I saying all that? Because when you ask the right question, you get the right response. And that was a response I needed, which started me on a trajectory of being able to understand what it looked like to raise people up, to help put them on the right place on the bus to move our organization forward. Your relationship is the exact same way.
Right.
Unfortunately, we don't ask the right questions. So we're going to be going through, and if you're single, I really want to encourage you. We're going to be giving the people who are in our Relationship Academy some liberties to invite a +1. We're going to figure that out from a detailed standpoint. And we're going to bring people into this community. And I want to teach and train you guys. We may talk a little bit about that stuff here, but I really want to go through this, baby, with and I think what we probably wind up doing is putting our couples on the same diet. On the same diet. It's just going to look like that for couples. The reason why this is important, guys, is because I first knew Glenn. You were awesome in the 10 in Capitol Plaza. Shanae, how about it was when I first came? It's funny that she says that. How about that plane ride was a direct right around that exact same time that apparently you and I met. When you play 20 questions and you know the right questions to ask, I promise you it will bear the right response. Cherie, I want to just play a little game with you. I didn't ask you about this, so I want to play a little impromptu game with you, and I want to show people how this works. Okay?
Okay.
Y'all just hang tight because I'm looking for the right.
Me on the spot.
I'm putting you on the spot. This is crazy for a turtle. I didn't organize my papers. I've been up since 3:00 this morning, so I got some stuff going on. So here. Let me ask you a real quick question. Strangest date you've ever been on?
Oh gosh, the strangest date?
Yes. Strangest date you've ever been on? All right, quickly. Okay. If you could only eat one food for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Crab.
What's one thing I can do to improve our relationship?
Spend more time with me.
If we could teleport anywhere in the world right now, where would it be?
Cancun.
How can I help you when you're angry?
Leave me alone.
What crazy thing do you want to try someday?
What is it? The jet, not jet skiing. The thing when you being pulled in the air.
The parachute behind the boat?
Yeah, whatever.
Okay. What do you remember most about the day we first met?
I didn't like you.
What makes you the happiest?
When you make me laugh.
Guys, let me tell y'all what we just did, just so that y'all understand. We started a conversation. Now, I could have stopped and engaged her on each one of those things, but this was just about getting her talking.
Right.
Let me tell you something about an 88% turtle. They don't talk fast.
Right.
They don't think off the top of their head, and they don't move, and they don't. Now, here's what's happening. And again, I got to thank my good friend Dr. Rhonda Waller for even bringing this up. Now, this is for couples, but they have a whole list for singles that they're gonna do. But I want you guys to get into practice. Say practice. Put that in the chat. Say practice. I want you guys to get into practice because I want you to develop a habit of creating conversation.
Right.
Come on.
Right. No, I was just saying, Dana put
parasailing. That's what it is. So guys, if you're gonna bring energy to any relationship, you're gonna have to be able to be a great conversationalist, and you're gonna have to be able to bring the conversation to the table. Because if you don't have the conversation, you will lose. If you do have the conversation, you will win. Because it's in having the conversation that you get down to truth. And the only way that you can navigate your relationship properly and with great intentionality and grow it healthy is to bring truth to the relationship. Right. And when that's absent, I promise you, you're going to have a shell of a relationship. I hope this helped you today.
Right.
Why are you laughing? Why are you stuck?
Because, see, this, for those of you that are in a relationship with a turtle or that are dealing with the turtle, if you're single and you're dating somebody that is a turtle. And for those of you that don't know what a turtle is.
There are 4 temperaments in every human being. We characterize them as animals. But if you've ever taken the DISC assessment, the D would be a lion, the I would be a flamingo, The S would be a turtle. I mean, a chameleon, and the C would be a turtle. Cherie is 88% turtle, probably 70-some% chameleon,
Yeah, I need to read
and
that.
maybe about 40-some% flamingo, and then she's probably about 30% lion or something like that. I'm 88%. I'm 99% lion. I just took the test a couple days ago. I'm 99% lion and 99% flamingo. I am 39% chameleon and 25% turtle.
Right.
What does that mean? Turtles are analytical thinkers. They are the ones that they mull over everything. Everything is about, making a decision based upon facts, right? So they're not going to, when you ask a turtle, what do they think? They're going to probably tell you, I have to think about that.
Right. And so my point with that was that I was laughing because even though he asked the questions, we've moved on. I haven't moved on in my mind. Because now when you have this conversation with a person, I would say if they're any temperament other than a flamingo, because flamingos just move on.
Yeah.
They gone.
Yeah.
You asked it, they answered.
Yeah, lions are that
Even
way
lions
when
will
it
still
comes
cut
to tasks versus relationships.
Right. So know that this starts conversation, because now in my mind I'm thinking, oh no, I didn't mean to say that. I meant to say this. And so when we get off, no, we're gonna have
We're gonna have
this
a whole
conversation.
we'll
is
have a
gonna
whole
continue
conversation.
because you started a conversation.
But it brings energy.
Right.
Do you feel energized this morning?
Yes.
Do you feel closer to me?
Yes.
Do you feel like that there was a breath of fresh air just blown into the room of our
Yes.
relationship?
Yes.
And that's all it is. And unfortunately, what most people don't do is they don't invite that. And so now you get content with the cat that don't say nothing.
Right.
Brothers, you get content with her as long as she just cute. I'm going to tell you right now, cute fades. Cherie, can you please underscore that and help them? Cuteness will fade.
Yeah, because when they getting on your nerves, they ain't gonna be so cute.
I'm trying to tell you. So if you don't know how to have a conversation, I promise you, it's going to show up. Next week, I'm not sure what direction we're going to go in. We may probably go back to some of the stuff on how your mate needs you to communicate to them so that you can bring more energy into the room. But I just wanted to just leave you guys with something that could help you. We saw this movie last night. It sort of revolutionized some things in us, but really more than that, I think it brought up some stuff that we hadn't thought about. And we said, how could we unpack that to help you? If you haven't seen the photograph, go see it. I wish I could hack up clips of it right now just to show you better than I can tell you. But I hope this has helped you this morning.
Right. And so once again, thank you for joining us on Breakfast with the Brooks. If you have not subscribed to our channel, please subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell so you get notifications. If you're interested in learning more about the MAPS Relationship Academy, please go to www.thecrcoach.com. You can schedule a free discovery session. Also, there's information on the website where you can go ahead and register to take the
Disc assessment?
Well, we don't call it a disc assessment.
Well, it is. The Welcome to the Jungle.
Welcome to the Jungle
Disc
assessment.
personality assessment.
Right, it doesn't say disc on the website.
Okay,
That's
got
why
it.
I got stuck.
Okay.
So, where you can take the personality assessment so that you can find out what animal you are. And we look forward to seeing you guys next Saturday.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.
At the end
and
of the day,
as always, we all
need some help. Y'all be good. We'll talk soon.
Bye, guys.